Welcome to this episode of True Crime Chronicles, where we explore one of the most shocking and heart-wrenching cases in modern history: the murder of James Bulger. This tragic case, involving the abduction and brutal killing of a 2-year-old boy by two 10-year-old boys in 1993, shook the world and forever changed the way we think about childhood, crime, and justice. Today, we'll examine the details of this horrific crime, its impact on child protection laws, and the intense media coverage that continues to spark debate decades later. It was an ordinary day in Bootle, Merseyside, England. Denise Bulger took her 2-year-old son, James Patrick Bulger, to the New Strand shopping center. While inside a butcher's shop, Denise briefly let go of James's hand to pay for her items. In that fleeting moment, James disappeared. CCTV footage later revealed a chilling sequence of events. Two 10-year-old boys, John Venables and Robert Thompson, had lured James away. The grainy footage showed them leading him by the hand out of the shopping center at 3:42 p.m. What followed was a horrifying ordeal that would end with James's mutilated body being found 2 days later on a railway line in Walton, Liverpool. Venables and Thompson led James on a 2.5-mile journey through Liverpool. Along the way, they were spotted by 38 people. Some witnesses noticed James crying or appearing distressed, but were reassured when the boys claimed he was their younger brother or that they were taking him to a police station. The true horror unfolded when they reached an isolated area near a railway line. There, Venables and Thompson inflicted unimaginable violence on James. They tortured him with bricks and an iron bar, poured paint into his eyes, and ultimately left him on the tracks in hopes that a train would destroy evidence of their crime. Tragically, James's body was severed by an oncoming train. The discovery of James's body sparked nationwide outrage and grief. Police launched an intensive investigation and released CCTV images of the two boys leading James out of the shopping center. These images led to Venables and Thompson being identified and arrested just days later. During their interrogations, both boys initially denied involvement, but eventually confessed to the crime. The details they revealed were chilling, evidence of premeditation, and a level of violence that seemed incomprehensible for children so young. The trial of John Venables and Robert Thompson began in November 1993 at Preston Crown Court. Despite their young ages, just 11 years old at the time, they were tried as adults due to the severity of their crime. This decision sparked significant controversy, as it raised questions about how society should handle juvenile offenders. During the trial, both boys were found guilty of murder, making them the youngest convicted murderers in modern British history. The judge described their actions as unparalleled evil and barbarity. They were sentenced to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, a form of indefinite detention for juveniles, with a minimum term set at 8 years. The media frenzy surrounding the case was unprecedented. The public's shock and anger were amplified by sensationalized reporting that painted Venables and Thompson as evil or monsters. Their names and faces were splashed across headlines worldwide, a decision that would have profound consequences. While some argued that exposing their identities was necessary for public accountability, others criticized this move for fueling vigilante threats against not only Venables and Thompson, but also their families. After their release in 2001 at age 18, both were given new identities under strict anonymity orders to protect them from potential harm. Child protection policies.
Schools, social services, and law enforcement agencies began reevaluating protocols for identifying at-risk children who might display violent tendencies. In addition to these legal changes, public awareness campaigns emphasize vigilance in crowded public spaces to prevent similar tragedies. One of the most contentious aspects of this case is the lifelong anonymity granted to Venables and Thompson after their release from custody. Supporters argue that protecting their identities is essential for their safety and rehabilitation. Critics, including James Bulger's family, believe this anonymity denies justice by shielding them from public accountability. John Venables has since been imprisoned multiple times for offenses including possession of child sexual abuse images, fueling further outrage over his protection under anonymity laws. The Bulger case challenged deeply ingrained beliefs about childhood innocence. How could two 10-year-olds commit such a horrific act? Were they born evil, or were they products of neglectful or abusive environments?
Psychologists have studied this case extensively, exploring factors such as early exposure to violence or trauma that might have influenced Venables and Thompson's behavior. However, no definitive answers have emerged, leaving society grappling with uncomfortable questions about nature versus nurture. James Bulger's tragic death left an indelible mark on British society, and indeed the world. Heightened awareness. Parents became more vigilant about supervising young children in public spaces. Juvenile justice reform. The case prompted ongoing debates about how best to balance punishment with rehabilitation for young offenders. Media responsibility. The sensationalized coverage highlighted ethical dilemmas around reporting on juvenile crimes without exacerbating public hysteria or endangering those involved. As we conclude today's episode on True Crime Chronicles, we remember James Bulger not just as a victim, but as a symbol of why vigilance, compassion, and justice matter so deeply in our society. His story reminds us that while we may never fully understand what led to this tragedy, we must continue striving to protect our most vulnerable citizens, our children. Thank you for joining us today as we revisited one of history's most heart-wrenching cases. We invite you to share your thoughts on how society should handle juvenile offenders who commit heinous crimes, and what more can be done to prevent such tragedies in the future. Until next time, stay safe and keep questioning what lies beneath every story.